Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second meeting of the House Public Safety and Homeland Security meeting. Today we're going to be taking up two bills, and hopefully this will be a short meeting because we have meetings just going all over the Capitol at the present time. Last week I introduced some of our new people, our new attorney for Legislative Council, Terry Long, and then Miss Linda, the first blonde, and next to her is the second blonde is Linda Nations. She's Linda number 2. And Linda works in my office and has a lot to do with trying to put all this together. And I failed to introduce a very special guy, an intern by the name of Ryan. And Ryan, why don't you just tell everybody why you're here and what you do? That was a test.
Hello, my name is Ryan Norman. I'm currently a junior at the University of West Georgia. I'm dealing with the internship, the General Assembly intern. There was 35 members picked from all across the state of Georgia in state universities. I had the opportunity to be involved in the program. We're here pretty much to get firsthand experience of how legislation is passed in Georgia. Hopefully we can learn as much as we can and just be any help, and be as much help as we can. And we actually get credit for this, so that was a great thing. So, but we're just here to learn and try to get valuable experience. And I'm having a great time, and I really do appreciate Chairman Day for everything that he's done for me. And I'm really learning. I'm thankful to be here. So, thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Great fella. I just hope that your opinion of government and how it works isn't rotten by the time you finish. On the other hand, I think you'll find it's actually an honorable mechanism. On our agenda today, we have House Bill 1019 and then a bill that was sent back to committee, HB 465. And I'm going to ask the author of that bill, Mr. Perrin, to please approach and reintroduce your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, members of the committee. Again, I bring House Bill 465, which is the lowering bill to increase security on school safety zone. And I wanted to commend your leadership, Chairman Day, and the members of the committee, especially Madam Chair Chambers, to kind of put together a good bill. That's what we wanted, and to have more security in our school safety zones. It's increased the penalties for violations, required check-in for visitors, and posting sign. And what we need to do is, if nobody wants to leave the premises, to have the power to arrest and charge with a misdemeanor in that case. The substitute, it was changed on Section C, and we added number 4. It was deleted from the old bill, and this section, code section, shall not apply to, and we added a parent, grandparent, or guardian listed on the child's pickup list who fails to sign in while delivering school supplies, food, clothing, or other legitimate businesses, and who's not previously been sanctioned by school officials for disrupting the school. Again, I think this is a good bill, and again, thank you for your leadership and members of the committee for getting a good bill together.
Thank you, and thank you to Ms. Chambers for helping make a good bill even better. Are there any members of the committee who wish to ask any questions of the author? Ms. Chambers?
Mr. Chairman, at the appropriate time, I'd like to be recognized for a motion.
Okay. Any members have any questions of the author? At this time, a motion would be in order.
Move to pass by substitute.
We have a motion to do pass by sub, and a second by about everybody on the committee. All in favor, please raise your right hand and signify yes. Thank you. It's unanimous. Thank you very much for working with us. The next bill is a very important bill. It is going to be handled by Mr. Neal, our vice chairman. The genesis of it, before he starts, is sort of anchored in the tragedy that happened at the Fulton County Courthouse, and it opened a plethora of questions about TASER. And in that discussion, there were many things that surfaced, and after hearing much testimony, we came up with what we think is going to be a good thing for law enforcement. And having said that, Mr. Neal, if you'd please present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill comes after several hearings last year relating to the use of tasers. During those hearings, we heard from law enforcement community and experts who acknowledged the benefit of taser in control, the benefit of taser in eliminating the need sometimes for lethal force, and we certainly acknowledge the need for law enforcement to be able to use taser appropriately. We also heard in those hearings testimony from advocacy groups that had some concerns about tasers and the way tasers are being used, and this bill kind of refines some of the requirements placed upon law enforcement to hopefully ensure that the agencies that are using the taser will be using them within the guidelines and according to the training that they receive. And what this bill basically does is this bill requires prior to use of electronic control weapons or devices, peace officers will be required to complete a course of instruction and certification approved by the council provided by the Georgia Public Safety Training Center. And all persons that are certified to use electronic control weapons will complete an update or refresher training course as would be prescribed by the council in order for their electronic weapons control certification to remain in force. And the council is authorized to, of course, withdraw or suspend certification to operate an electronic control weapon of anyone for failure to meet the update or the refresher requirements. What this bill basically does is leaves in the hands of law enforcement a very important tool to control and to enforce and to be able to do that without using lethal force in many occasions, while at the same time making sure it's done in a way that protects the suspect or the prisoner, and make sure that these devices are being used according to the standards that are set forth through the training process.
Thank you. I want to, at this point, thank Mr. Bill Hudson, who has helped us craft this language. He is the executive director of Post, and his eminent experience in law enforcement has distinguished himself from everybody else. And he's a leader of leaders in pursuing excellence, and we thank you for your help. Post, in effect, would be required to provide the training program, and any agency wanting to use it, TASER, would be required. If they don't, they would not be required to take the post-certified and prepared program. I want to ask our legislative council representative if she might have any ideas or anything to add on to this. Have we missed any critical point here?
I'm not sure how to operate this. After we push the button, or just
Pull it up close to you and talk.
I think you covered everything. I don't know if you got that on the speaker. I think you've covered just about everything. I'm
Okay.
happy to entertain any questions.
Okay, and by the way, if you find us stammering all over ourselves, I know I do that all the time. My wife, Sally here, is always reminding me if she's not actually tripping me, but please do jump in. We want to make sure these things are done right. I highly recommend the bill to the committee. As you know, it's also been controversial. And an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of medicine. And having said all that, at this time I'll entertain a motion.
Ask a question?
Oh, I'm sorry. Any questions of the presenter?
I did. I think you answered part of what my concern was, and that is that the post officials who are going to have to come up with this training, does the training already exist?
No.
But it's something that you're able to do fairly.
Well, how about explaining what you do?
I
If you wouldn't
just
mind
wondered
approaching
about-
the microphone.
I was wondering about the cost of setting up this training. This seems like a very reasonable approach to this problem, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to make sure there was nobody opposing it that we didn't know about.
Sure. Another good point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for those kind remarks. I appreciate that. Dale Mann and I have had an opportunity to work with your committee and your chairman in writing this legislation, and we've had some input. There is, to answer your question, there is some cost, and the training center would actually deliver the training. The post council would certify the training, provide the certification and the tracking, and investigate any allegations of misuse or abuse, and be able to take sanctions. That council has that authority under state statute. So we have the training can be developed fairly reasonable in a fairly reasonable time. There's going to be very minimal cost, I think. To we currently have to track the certification of just under 100,000 communication operators, correction officers, and we have jailers and about 28,000 law enforcement officers. So we have a pretty big job with a staff of 24 people at post, and we would ask for some additional funding at post of about $45,000. And I think Dale Mann has told me it would be in that range or something near that cost to the Public Safety Training Center. And that's come from conversations that Dale and I have had in the communications and talking about if the General Assembly sees fit to pass.
If I could interrupt you, Mr. Huston, we just took that up in the Public Safety Appropriations Committee, but it's going to be in the 07 budget, not 06. So.
Okay.
I'm sorry, please.
Yes, but we want to work with you, and we appreciate the opportunity. But we can assure. I think I speak for Dale Mann at the Public Safety Training Center because we work very closely on everything. We can deliver the training. We think it's a good tool for law enforcement, but it's important that every agency that utilizes this as a law enforcement tool have a written policy and have the training, and we certify the training so we know who is qualified to utilize that weapon. It's so we think it's good legislation.
Thank you, sir.
Law enforcement community is going to be.
Do you have any other questions? Are there any members out that are present, or anybody here present, who would like to speak for or against this bill? If so, just please approach the.
Could I make one observation before I sit down?
Yes, sir.
Just very quickly. I look at Bob Hanner over there. When I was a young country sheriff about 30 years ago, and first time I came to the General Assembly, Bob Hanner he was nice to me, very helpful to me, and I've always appreciated his friendship and all the help and guidance he gave me. That's been a lot of years ago. And I'm telling you how long it's been. When I first knew Bob Hanner, he had a head full of hair. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Hudson. Okay. we have somebody. If you'd please state your name, who you're with, and
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Chuck McMullen, and I represent the Corrections Corporation of America, which is a private prison company based in Nashville, Tennessee. We currently own, operate, and manage 4 facilities here in Georgia, 2 of which are we have a contract with the Department of Corrections, and as a result, we have a number of all of our corrections officers are post-certified. However, CCA has a policy that strictly prohibits any CCA employee from using tasers. It's my understanding that in the committee substitute, there's language, and I don't have the bill in front of me, but that exempts any law enforcement agency that if they don't use a taser, that they're exempted. 2 points to that. I'm not sure what the Department of Corrections policy is on tasers, and I've tried to contact some of the department to verify that.
by the way, is any member from the department here?
I believe there's a subcommittee on appropriations occurring at the same time, so I think Brian Owens and some of the folks
You're
are
right.
in that meeting.
They are there.
So I certainly don't believe they intended to not be here. But I guess in this perhaps is a question for legal counsel. If the Department of Corrections does have a policy against using tasers, would a contractor be included in that language or to exempt us since we don't use tasers? And I guess that's still based on the presumption if the Department of Corrections uses tasers or not. So if possible, we'd like to ask the committee to consider exempting contractors that do not use tasers.
I'll respond to that. In reading over the language that we have here, Mr. McMullen, on page 1, line 24 of the bill, and I know you don't have a copy of it. I'll be glad to read it. Okay, we're going to provide you a copy. It specifies a law enforcement unit authorizing the use of electronic control weapons. So my interpretation of that, and legal counsel can help us here, my interpretation of that is if the unit, if the agency, or in your case, your corporation, doesn't use tasers, then your officers will not be required to go through that certification for taser training.
I would also thank you. And Mr. Hudson, do you have anything to add to that? Do you?
No, I agree with what the Vice Chairman said. The bill I've seen only, it doesn't require any agency to use tasers or electronic control devices. This is only to those agencies who wish to use it, who authorize their officers to use it. If they do in fact authorize their officers to use it, they must go through this plan.
So if the Department of Corrections does use the tasers, then we would still be required to go through the training, since we do not. I just don't know if the language specifically contemplates it.
We might want to amend this to include, your legal mind here will be of assistance, to include, any unit, agency, or
It's contractors.
contractors.
That's how we're specified in our contract, is we're referenced as a contractor in our contract between the
That would
Department of
operate
Corrections
under the policy of the employing agency, state agency.
You can make sure that that is included if it's not already.
Okay. In your opinion, is it included? I just rather be
I
safe
would
than sorry.
have to review that code section that defines law enforcement unit to see if that is in 40-8-2.
Ms. Chambers?
Thank you. It's quite possible that Section D on page 2 may take care of that. It states, prior to the official use of the electronic control weapons or similar devices, peace officers authorized by the officer's law enforcement unit. So if those particular officers employed by your corporation are not authorized to use that, then it looks like that section may take care of that for you.
Thank you, Ms. Chambers. I'm just reading this again for the first time, so I appreciate the committee's willingness to look at this, and we certainly don't want to hold up the bill's movement.
If there's a question, and I would recommend this to the committee, if there's a question on this, and I spoke with you earlier about this, we can go ahead and move it out and do one of two things: amend it on the House floor, or in the Senate.
That'd be great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that.
Okay. Mr. Hanner.
Let me, Sheriff Hudson, correct me if I'm wrong. If an agency says, yes, we're going to use tasers, but they don't have to train the whole force, only a person is going to use the taser would have to be trained. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That is, the agency I came from, the Continental Sheriff's Office, we use those for a number of years. We developed our own training program and have a very rigid policy. And we didn't authorize our entire strength of law enforcement. It was limited use. Use that. Right. And I think this bill's written that way, my understanding. That only that chief executive of that agency would authorize anyone or no one that he or she wanted to
Right.
be authorized or certified to use it.
Yes, sir. So in other words, if the Department of Corrections authorizes people to do that, they have to be trained. But I wouldn't think in any way that would make your corporation have to go through training.
Understood. Thanks, Mr. Hanner. And again, the intent here was not to slow down this bill. We just, the
I
bill as
understand.
drafted was, we were a little concerned that was a little broad, and we just wanted to seek an exemption if possible, if necessary. So thank you for the committee's understanding, and we support the bill. Thank you.
I would like to add a comment to something Mr. Hanner said. In my opinion, if, let's say, corrections changed their mind and they went to adopt policy using taser, I would expect them to also expect that of anybody they might contract out to.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, absolutely. We could not agree. We certainly want to make sure
You
we're doing
can't- you
all
can't
department
agree?
SOPs. I'm sorry?
You can agree?
No, I
Now's
agree
the
with
time
you.
to
No,
agree.
No, sir. I agree with what you're saying. I'm sorry. We certainly agree with that position.
Okay.
If CCA ever adopted that policy, they would certainly require that of their officers, and we always comply with all GDC SOPs, and so absolutely.
Okay.
Well, so but as it's my understanding, the committee substitute looks like it does cover this, and if not, we'll work with the committee as it goes through the process to try and fix anything if need be. But I agree.
Okay.
CCA agrees with your statement.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Are there any more questions from here? All right, this would be the time to make a motion. Mr. Neal?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the committee vote do pass with one request, and that's that Legislative Council does look to make sure that we have interpreted this correctly and that we're not putting something on CCA that we don't need to put on them. So I'd like for Legislative Council to look at that, but I do move do pass.
Oh, okay, I don't know if there's really a motion like that.
No,
Exactly,
I'm requesting
but-
they look. I know I can't put that in the motion, but I'm requesting that you do look at that.
Okay, so what is your motion?
I move do pass.
By committee sub?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and we have a second by Ms. Chambers. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. And thank you very much. Seeing no business before the committee, we're hereby adjourned, and thank you very much.